Today, I'd like to talk to you about values. If I were to ask you, what are your top 3 values? What would you say? Okay, we all have them. Sometimes as people, we don't think about our values and we don't think about the things that we actually move towards. I think most people strive to be good people. Most people strive to live a life that's consistent with what they believe goodness to be. Each person does have a set of values by which they approach life. One person may say they value truth. Somebody else may say they value honesty. Somebody else may say they value integrity. Somebody else may say they value their time. Okay, so there's a lot of different values that a person is going to have. But what we have to understand is that God has values also. And we have to know that God's values are holy and they take us to a holy standard. And if you want to know what God's values are, well, simply look at the Old Testament and the 10 Commandments. That's essentially what God's values are. It shows you the things that he values. And if we strive to be holy people, we should want to value the same thing that God values. And if you look at the very first commandment, the very first commandment is going to say essentially, know God before God. Now, in looking at that, if that is the very first commandment, so that's God's very first value, essentially what it's saying is that God values himself. Now, God being God, and since he is the source of goodness, he is the source of love, he is the source of empathy, and in fact, the source of all things that are good. So, since he's the source of all things that are good, God is going to value himself, and he's saying that we should value him as well. Oftentimes when a person hasn't been exposed or hasn't been come in close contact with the church, okay, hasn't been exposed to church culture, they may come into the church with their values and they may find it difficult to embrace the church's values. Essentially, the church as a whole, what it does is it teaches a person to value the same thing that God values. It teaches a person to be holy by ensuring that they understand what God values and moving them into that direction. Now, for some people, it's going to be easier for them to embrace those values because some of them may already be present in their lives. For others, it's going to be a little bit more difficult. Values are developed through a variety of different ways. Like, so I was in the military, okay? And the military did have their own values, okay? Military values, it was loyalty. Let me see if I can remember them. Loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, and personal courage. So those are the Army's values, if you will. Now, if you want to be in the Army, you have to hold those values in a high regard in life. Now, essentially, those values themselves can be applied in just about any place. So those values are not inconsistent with what the church teaches. But it becomes problematic when a person values things that are all about themselves achieving success to the detriment of other people. A person might say they value money. The church doesn't place a high value on being rich, but the church does understand that money is necessary in order for businesses to operate. The church understands that. And so if a person's life pursuit is all about money, well, then they're going to find the church as a place where they're going to struggle to embrace the church's values. But other people are going to find it easier to embrace those values. And so as an individual, essentially what you have to do is you have to look at the things that you value. What I would suggest is that you write them down on a piece of paper, your top 3 values. Write them down on a piece of paper. And with those top 3 values, after you write them down, see how consistent they are with the church's values. And if you find an inconsistency there, well, then there's an opportunity to grow and to embrace or to let go or try to move away from one value and embrace another one. A person can do that, though it may take a little bit of time. But at the same time, by understanding that moves you in the right direction. So I'm Father Charles, and have a blessed day.